In the ideal case, you're talking about an organizational culture where people are asking the questions. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what's happening in the market, how can you decide? It's all about this honest inquiry. So if you need the team to be understanding the logic of why they're doing the things, what is it all about? How does it all relate to? And then you need them to be open about this. If they're being very respectful, saying, "Oh, that's what the boss said, and we should listen to it," the whole thing falls flat. That's why I'm a firm believer that when you're working a market development program, the type of culture that you need to have is somewhere where there is not a very strong hierarchy system. There's a need for discipline. But that does not mean that it should be a very hierarchical structure. It should be somewhere people should be free to, express their opinions, free to say what is it about. And if that's not organizational culture, I don't know what it is. It means essentially at the end of the day, it's about this. Yes, simplistically put, I think in the first few months, it's about go ahead, do it. Just go on, do this. Yes, you won't probably understand this, but just do this thing for a few days. So it's about, like, say, for example, filling out a partnership justification form or doing a results chain. Initially when we kind of were starting the early days, we said, results chain. You were like, what is this Excel sheet? What is this format? Why do you have to do this? And just go ahead, do it. And you start doing it. And then what the trick is, you start using your feedback meetings, using those as a basis. So people see the value of, why they need to do this. It's not a overnight realization, it's a gradual realization. So first step is you start having those meetings structured around those results chains, saying, okay, we saw this, what did you say? Then the first thing that happens is people start saying, okay, now I need to make sure that my story is right because it comes back to me. That's one learning. The other learning is, more important learning, is when they go out in the field and they see things happening, and then they come and tell the story. And then they connect these two. Oh, now I can see why this is happening. And that's the sweet spot, means in one sense, because that's when, as an organization, you start getting a lot of returns. People doing results chain, everything. Another example that I would say is that, now I've kind of made it mandatory for people to, when they're coming at the concept note of a new intervention, the results chain should be drafted. Again, initially they were like, okay, we'll do it, But what I've noticed is, ever since I've done that, the clarity of their thought, the clarity of how they're presenting their argument, the clarity of how this relates to poverty and everything is that much more clear. Earlier, I used to get a presentation, and there was a kind of a essay type results chain, but it wasn't like, a complete flow chart was like that. So the questions, the arguments were not, constructed properly. Now I can see a slow difference. I'm pretty sure if I continue on doing this thing, the way people would see things, the way that people appreciate things will be much better. So it's like a, force, realization, benefit. Well, one of the first thing, and that remains always an issue, is about this perception that, results measurement, not mine. That's RM team, and this is mine. Yeah. You need to have a separate RM team. And you need to have a separate intervention team. But at the same time, if you put yourself in the shoes of an IM, results intervention team member, whenever you have a dedicated team for results measurement, their perception is, when it's RM related, it's RM's job, not mine. So usually that's one of the first obstacles that you want to break. You're saying RM is not here to do RM work. RM here is to guide you, is to support you to do your RMs is everyone's work. It's not only theirs, it's yours, mine, everyone, because that's the one thing that keeps it all together. So getting that kind of divide mentality across, means getting that away, is something, it only gets better over time. It's huge when you're starting off something. Later on, as you keep on kind of making sure people are using it, making sure that people are seeing the benefit of it, making sure that they're part of the meetings of how it's done, making sure when you're reporting to DFAT, it's coming, the more they're getting exposed to the learn, the more accepting people tend to be. The other benefit that RM comes across is because that's the one group where you have the whole picture of the, like if you talk with the RM unit, in a way, they're coming from the learning center. They're saying, you know what, here we saw this, here we saw this, here we're seeing assessments. We need to do a special, so having them in the team meetings, and when they say things like this, the team's sense of appreciation increases significantly. Ritesh, who's our kind of focal point for RM, he was probably one of the youngest person as far as age is concerned when he joined the RM unit. So that was perceived to be kind of a barrier as such in a young person talking to seniors. Over time, he loves RM. I think his strength, his insights, his contribution in meetings. Now he's become such an integral part. I can see team members going to him now, say, hey, we have done this. How do you think we can make it better? We have needed information about here, agriculture productivity. How do you think we can make? Is there a business case for this? So it's not just discussion that is rooted to a results chain. It's a discussion about concepts. It's a discussion about learnings. It's a discussion about what can we do better. And in more of those meetings, I'm seeing RM being part of those kind of discussions. Tourism recently had a brainwave about saying, let's do something on cargo space. We've been hearing about cargo space being a major issue. Sorry, not in tourism, in horticulture. Cargo space export. And then by themselves, they organize themselves. They put in Paul, RM person, saying, okay, can you help us out? Came up with a special study, went out. It's refreshing to see these kind of discussions going on by themselves. First, set those priorities. That if it comes to any sort of approval for me or anything that comes here, the first thing that I check is, okay, have you consulted with RM? Have you done that? Did you get their opinion? What do they think? Now, even though I probably know what the answer is, I want them to go to RM to get that kind of answers. I want RM input to be there upfront. So next time they know, before they send anything to me, they are consulting with RM because they know it won't come back to them. Second thing, as far as results, now that we have agricultural annual aggregation results, they see how results are everyone knew that, but it's about actually doing it that really makes a difference. So results being discussed so importantly. When you're talking about new business plans, you're talking about, again, what are the projections? When you're talking about, okay, what are the impacts? So if these are the questions, if this is the frequency of discussion, people automatically gravitate towards the results measurement. When you're starting off a project, it's all about, let's find a new partner, let's find new partnerships. At that point in time, the evidence of RM is slightly latent. People don't see it that much. As you have more experience, more implementation, more intervention, more monitoring, and you say, okay, why are you doing this? What are the implications? Then the importance becomes much more visible. And I think that's where the shift happens. And you need to keep on reinforcing it. And if you're in year 2 or 3 or 4 of the project, without RM, you won't have a meaningful discussion. So people who are not part of it feel left out. They can see that they're not participating. So out of their own conviction, out of their own sense of participation, they need to get in touch with RM. The fact that the team will not accept an answer that I present on ground, they'll say, why? What? Tell me this idea more. Well, no, this won't make sense, or this. Earlier it would be, this is the idea. Interesting, it might work. Now, it's more about, you read faces and you understand some people have certain qualms about it. They still aren't as expressive as you would want them, but being here in 3 years, I get to know how people react. So when I'm presenting certain ideas, I try to read their body language, face. And then if they're not saying, I say, I see you are not feeling, not interested. And then they kind of speak. So you need that initial nudge, but they're if the idea doesn't make sense to them, they speak about it, which is, I think, what we want at the end. That you want someone where people ask the right questions, and if they're not convinced, they'll say it.